Hello, my name is Grian and welcome back to another Minecraft video. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the secret blocks of Minecraft. And some of them you will have seen before, but all of them are not accessible in the creative inventory, meaning that we have to use commands to get them. So if I put dragon egg in there, it's not there. If I put mushroom block, it's also not there. But we all know that these blocks exist. So how do we get hold of them? Right, well, let's get the technical part out of the way. The first thing that you can do is use the setblock command or the fill command. You can use a command block or just type it in chat, and it tells you how to actually go about it in the chat itself, so it shouldn't be too difficult. However, most of us that are on the Java edition and have access to a server use the plugin World Edit. It's fantastic as a tool and it does so much. So we basically use the magic wand and then we set it to whatever block that we want. I just changed that stone into anvil. Fairly simple stuff. So let's take a look at some of them. And the first one is the mob spawner. We've all seen this block before, but we can't get it normally. Even with Silk Touch, I believe it doesn't work. So you can just spawn these into your hands using the /give command and you can place them like a normal block. However, the spinning pig and fire doesn't actually give us much use for that particular block. The ID was 52 and you can spawn it in via the methods we went over. The next one is the player head. Now you can get anyone's skin heads by holding control and middle clicking, or you can use that command. Two of the very simple ones. Next up we have the mushroom blocks. Now these are ones that we genuinely cannot have in our inventory because if you hold them, they just have mushrooms and that's it. So we've got a bunch of them here, and the best way is just to build whatever it is you want in gold or diamonds or something else, and then just replace them with the correct ID. All Minecraft blocks have a number associated with them, which is what that is up there. So you see that ID 100 comes up with that one, ID 99:14 will bring this one, etc, etc. Every single block and item has a number associated with it. So by changing the gold or diamond into that block, we can essentially place it as if we had whacked it down ourselves. So those mushroom blocks have a fair amount of uses, mainly in like medieval stuff. Next up is the piston heads. Now these are obviously in blocks normally, like if you have a piston, but these in particular have the technical bit missing. Instead of occupying 2 spaces, it only occupies 1. Now there's a few weird bits about it, and the main use is as a table. Only the one that's facing upright really works in that situation. But if you place a block next to it, it will update and disappear. Like I said, these blocks are a bit odd. They're obviously not meant to be placed like we do. Now these 3 blocks are interesting because what you will notice is they're not in the inventory, and there's no good reason why they aren't. They're beautiful blocks. All 3 of them can be used in building in multiple ways. What these are a subsection of double slab blocks. So it's like the underside of all of those slabs pasted on all 6 sides. And honestly, they're beautiful. I don't know why that they're not in the inventory as they are. It seems a waste to me because they all occupy data value and they've all got their own textures in the game. So it seems a real shame. So those are 3 blocks to make you aware of that are great for building. Next up is half a bed. There's very limited uses for these, and it's 26, 1, 2, and 3. And you can see that the texture is actually missing. So to use it, you really need to get creative, I suppose. There's only one real use that I've seen these beds be used for, although they could totally be used for detailing, and that's a chair. You stick it against a wall, put a banner behind it, and you've got yourself a chair with some nice legs. Next up are some technical blocks or mystical blocks. I don't know what you would actually call them. We got a portal block here, which actually has texture missing, and we have our end portal, which is very similar in the way that it's got textures missing. You can look down into it and whatever else. You wouldn't typically use it for building, but it's this next block that is really special. 209. It's the block that you use to go further into the end. Now, this is one that you can paste in a few times and create an even bigger structure, and you can essentially go inside it and see into the abyss or the void or whatever this weird place is, and you can contemplate life and wonder why you're here and why Minecraft is making you think about all these things. Or you can move on to the next one, which is 2 very normal blocks, but they don't exist as a placeable block. We have the furnace, which is always on, which is actually quite useful if you are making like a decorative village and you just want the furnaces to forever burn. The other one is a very useful block, which is the redstone lamp that is permanently on. However, if you do trigger the redstone, it will just turn off forever and you'll have to paste it in again. A very simple use is in a blacksmith. I just made this very, very briefly. There's no redstone attached to that, and it just lights up the entire area, and the same with the furnace, actually produces light as well. Next up, we've got one of the most useful set of blocks in the entire game, and they are the logs, the 6-sided logs. Now normally when you place them, you get this tree trunk where you can see all the age rings of the log, and if you set all of the blocks that you've got to 1712 or 1713, whatever one that you've chosen, you actually get a standardized grain of the bark, meaning you can make some pretty cool complex 3D trees. Now normally Minecraft trees are supposed to go straight up, but in more recent years we've made more organic trees that look a bit like this, and we don't want to see that bit of texture there. So if we make it all 6-sided, it looks really cool and looks like a proper tree, but there are of course many more uses. Next up is something that you've probably seen 1,000 times before, and that's iron trapdoors. However, because of the redstone activation part, you can't actually put them vertical without a redstone circuit, unless you use some fancy piston stuff as well. But I wanted to include it in here as well, because it is a pretty cool technique to use, and not something I'd considered until I saw a fantastic build by a guy called Dr. Bond, and I've linked his Twitter down below. He's probably the best builder that I've ever seen, and he used the trapdoors in this way. Instead of using a full block as a pillar, in between 2 blocks he set in a bunch of vertical trapdoors as a way of detailing, and I just thought that was a fantastic use of them, and I hadn't considered using it that way. But because of the redstone thing, I did want to include this as a secret block, even though it technically isn't, and you can do the same thing with half a door itself, which I actually am going to be using in one of my upcoming videos, but I haven't included that in this video. So remember, half a door can be used as well. Next up isn't the lava, it's actually the things around the lava, which is barrier blocks. You should know what a barrier block is. It's an invisible barrier, but when you hold it, it gives you an actual animation of the big red cross there. And they're incredibly useful for all sorts of map making and practical uses, but for building, they're not good. I made a house out of them, and the problem is, you can't see it. That's, you know, in terms of actually making a good looking building, they don't have that much use, other than perhaps using them to prop up other things that would fall, such as anvils or carpets or something like that. But as an actual building block, they're invisible, so it's a bit silly really, isn't it, to use it. Next up is one of the water blocks in its final stage of filtering out. Now this can be used as a puddle or like a bathtub or whatever. It's very useful, but you do need to turn some of the game rules off, and to save myself typing the whole thing out, I'm just going to drop that command down in the description itself so that you can do it if you want to have these not disappear on you. So yeah, there's a bath there, and this is a puddle. Now imagine that you're in a forest and there's loads of these podzol patches around with little bits of water. You could make a really atmospheric area using that trick. Now everyone's seen fire before, but if you just place it down, the fire will eventually go out on its own. However, if you set a block to fire, it will burn forevermore, and you won't have to worry about it going out. So I thought I'd include that in case you wanted to make some custom fire torches or whatever. Next up is the dragon egg 122. Now obviously this is in the game already and you can acquire it, but I thought I'd include it because it is cool. Now I've made a quick little European style lamppost, and the egg is there at the bottom as an additional detail because it fits so nicely with a fence on the top, and it works really well. I think many people wouldn't consider using the egg in construction like that. And finally, we have plants. Now obviously these plants on their own aren't anything to look at, but if you stack up lots of plants on top of each other, they look like vines or hanging plants, and it's just a way of making additional vegetation. However, if you update a block near any of them, they will vanish, and it can be extremely buggy but on certain servers and building areas and that kind of thing, they do stick around forever, and I've seen them used to great effect, such as hanging off of normal trees. This is exactly the same tree that we had earlier, but I've had some jungle saplings and some flowers hanging down from it to give it a bit of color and to make it seem a bit more alive. These big organic structures can really benefit from this kind of vegetation, and hopefully with this, you can come up with some ways of using it yourself. Now, that's all of the secret blocks that I wanted to talk about today. There's a lot of useful ones that you probably hadn't seen before, maybe you knew all about them. But one of the things about them is that you need to use commands to get them, or plugins. Now, if you don't have access to that on your single player world or don't know how, perhaps consider going onto my server, mc.grian.net, where we have a plot world where you can get a massive plot of land and you have access to all of the plugins that normally would not be available. There is World Edit, there is Voxel Sniper, and you can only use it within your plot. On top of that, we've also got a really cool armor stand animation thing, and you can make some excellent things. I will undo everything I did on this guy's plot. It's not actually mine, I didn't make that. But you can see people have made incredible things, and it's fun just to go and have a look around and see what people are making. Maybe you'll pick up a technique or two. So if you're looking for a plot server on the Java edition, head on over to mc.grian.net and join the builder community and make a very impressive plot. We will be running some competitions as well. Anyway, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.